Well, hello everybody, and
There
welcome to Monday Night Live.
Woohoo! The best night of the week.
The best night of the week, as you always say.
Yeah.
I love that you say that. Super excited to join you. My name is Dean Nixon, Kate Semmens, the lovely Kate Semmens, as I say on the podcast. And welcome to Monday Night Live here in St. George,
Now
Utah.
they're all going.
We're all going.
They tricked us before.
A couple of them were lagging.
Yeah, the
a couple of them
Facebooks
were
were
lagging.
being a little tricky.
So we're excited to join you tonight, excited to get to our topics, a lot of good stuff going
Hang
on
on,
in the world.
Dean. What's the weather in St. George like today?
Nobody wants it. The weather is sunny and nice. We are blessed with some of the best weather in the world. So I know we normally do the weather report. I usually do. I was like, today I'm going to skip it.
Oh, you were trying something new and I just roped you back in.
Pulled me back in.
Sorry about that.
Well, tonight I want to jump into tonight's topic right away, which is with the time that we have. It's communication, and really talking about communication and some of the struggles that we have with it as humans.
Right. And I always get so excited when we talk about this coping skill, which it is a coping skill.
It is a coping skill.
Because that's where I kind of took my beginnings of my educational career, was down the communication
path. You did. Mass communication.
Globally mass communication.
Large.
You have to know that, well, you don't have to, but I'm going to share with you that I call this national television. I'm always like, I got to get ready for national television on Monday. So maybe that may be a little bit manifestation trick that I'm happening right here. But
I love it.
But regardless, communication is a really, it's one of my favorite coping skills, because it is so, not that they are, all of the coping skills are good for everybody, right?
Right.
But I feel like specifically, whereas for Dean, his go-to is acceptance. Mm-hmm. Whereas communication is mine. It's my go-to one. If I can sit down with somebody and have a conversation that typically helps me understand where things are at,
right, and
where we're at in the relationship or whatever's going on in the situation, to help get me on board, which is kind of a big part of coping. For me, it really does help me with my anxiety that tends to come up, right?
Yes.
And so instead of having to go to some more extreme type of behaviors or maybe medications or stuff like that, communication has really, really been one of those that I've dug into to help me in my coping.
Yeah.
So specifically though tonight, because we've talked about communication a lot, if you go back through our different lives or go to the YouTube channel, right? Like, it comes up in topic often because it's a big heavy hitter. I mean, it's like bottom of the ninth, you need something, I think you throw in communication.
It is the most important thing for us to do as human beings. Mm-hmm. And what I find in most of the issues that we have as human beings is it's around the lack of communication. Right. Mm-hmm. We have been involved in communication since the dawn of time. We're finding a way to communicate, even to the point where being around individuals with a different dialect or a different language that they speak, we find ways to communicate. Yes. Some of us speak louder, thinking somehow that's going to help
louder and slower
bridge the gap. I always love seeing people do that. But it is interesting to watch. I do watch this happen a lot with individuals in marriages, in partnerships, in things that we're afraid of. Confrontation, all of these things is where communication can and will break down if we're not careful.
Right. Which kind of leads us to like the niche of what it is that we want to talk about with communication tonight, which is one of the 4 agreements. If you've ever read the 4 agreements by
Miguel Ruiz.
And so it's the agreement of to be impeccable with your word,
yes,
which is communication, right? And I like to call it, if you're in my women's group, we talk about this a lot, which is say what you mean and mean what you say.
Yeah.
So because oftentimes when we have kind of some crossed wires in communication, one or both members of a party are not really saying what they mean and or meaning what they say. There's a lot of like hinting around. For some reason, Dean, as humans, we feel really good when we think that we can like drop little hints about what we want, right? Like, speaking of couples,
right?
Like, oh geez, my birthday's in October.
Well,
I've been really excited for a new dress. I don't know, you know, like you just kind of hit
What
around.
I hear a lot is, are you hot? Translated, yes. Hey, I'm cold, will you get a blanket? Or, are you thirsty? No, I'm good. And translated, hey, could you get me a glass of water?
Yeah. Or my favorite, this is the way my dad used to communicate when we were young at the dinner table.
Pointing.
He would just point at something and we'd be like, ketchup, salt, water jug.
It's a guessing
what
game.
Do you need, right?
Guessing
so
game.
Instead of just saying what it is that you need, and quite honestly, for me, Dean, this comes back to a place of worthiness, right? Like, or being afraid to use my voice.
Yes.
Or feeling like I will come across as needy, codependent, over-aggressive, too assertive, not ladylike enough, whatever that looks like, right?
Right.
Instead of just saying, hey, for my birthday this year, I would really like a new dress.
Yeah. And I love where you went with that, because that is a topic that we really need to really address. And when you say not ladylike,
right?
You know, sometimes it is really, I hear this a lot from women, they really feel that expressing what they need is either unladylike or inappropriate, that they'll be considered being too forward,
right,
or too aggressive or too dominating, and they've been maybe taught that that's inappropriate for a woman to act like that, or it's inappropriate for a woman to stand up and say what she needs, because it won't be either attractive or accepted.
Right. Or even just to make a statement boldly and declaratively.
Yeah. And for men, I see it on the other side of that, where for men it's a vulnerability issue. Is communication a lot of times for men has been a vulnerability piece. The more that I say, the more I can be attacked. The more that I say, the more that can be pointed out as wrong or bad or not okay.
Right.
And so as men, it's like, well, you know, we don't want to talk about it. Don't talk about it. We don't share the feelings. Don't talk about what's really going on. And those are really intriguing things for young women growing up. Communication is a very important part of the culture. You know, sitting around at parties and gatherings and talking about things and talking about details and talking about all those things. Where for men, those aren't things we do growing up. A lot of us, unfortunately, it's usually the sitting back quietly talking about sports, watching things, comfortable topics, safe topics, but minimal amount of information.
Right.
And so because of that, we struggle coming together.
Right. And actually communicating.
Right.
So on our Turning Leaf Facebook, we've got Tori who's asked, can I ask you something that I've been majorly confused about? Absolutely, Tori. Type it into the next comment, and especially if it's on topic, we would love your interaction.
Yep.
Totally
we'll do
would
our
love
best.
to do it. So, and I love that we brought this piece into it, Dean. So I like to get transparent, as always. Don't worry, it's about me.
This time it's about me. Sometimes it's about me.
You're a part of the story, but it's about me. So Dean and I have recently jumped into the podcast world.
Yes.
Check us out. And in our first couple of podcasts, I found myself, by you pointing it out to me, kind of was sliding into some of those things, right? And our podcast, it's a platform that we've created in order to be able to really show up in our authentic. Okay, time out. We always show up authentically. I hope you feel that coming through the lens from us, right? Like we really do I always show up as Kate, Dean always shows up as Dean, and we talk to you guys.
But we have a limited amount of time. And
this isn't the exact best venue to really state some of our more aggressive opinions on things, right? and oftentimes when we disagree about stuff.
Yep.
And so that's kind of the platform that we've created to do on the podcast.
Yeah, that's where we argue and debate.
Yes, it's super fun. So Tori commented right there.
Yeah, I'll answer that in a minute.
Okay,
Tori.
perfect. So in the first couple of podcasts, as I was using my voice and really kind of standing up for things that I felt in my own being to be true, and then I would just kind of gently lob in, just put that kind of feminine, but it's okay if you don't agree with what I'm saying, right? And Dean would do this because we weren't on camera and be like, come on, stand up for yourself,
stand
right?
Up for
but
yourself.
That's totally part of this conditioning piece that we're talking about.
Yes. And it pushes us to a point where we really struggle, and we don't say what we mean, and we don't mean what we say, as you said, because It is that piece. And I'm not talking about just, I did talk about, men and women talking to each other, but it's about women talking to women.
Yes.
And men talking to men. A lot of times women feel very unsafe talking to other women, and men, the same. So it really is about creating and opening up that space where we can open up and have honest communication.
Yes.
And having communication without the fear. So a lot of times people are afraid of that judgment, because really communication is a currency. And you always hear me, talking about that in the workshops. Communication is a currency. It's how we trade information for knowledge. We trade information for emotion. We trade information for exchange. Like even pointing at ketchup, we're trading information for food. So it is a currency, and it is something that we have to become more and more comfortable with. That's why we state that communication is a coping skill, because when we increase our capability to communicate, the more that we can increase our capacity to communicate well and authentically, and I'm not talking like your $100 words.
Right.
I'm talking about just saying what needs to be said, allowing yourself to be present.
Yes.
If it's a woman, let that power and that assertiveness and that truth flow. If it's a man, allow yourself to be heard. Don't, be afraid of that vulnerability. Then it becomes a lot more powerful communication.
Absolutely.
But I see too many times we get into the passive aggressive type of comments or questioning. We beat, as you put it, beat around the bush. We never get directly to it. The other thing we don't do is we don't create clarity. Right. There's a lack of clarity. There's so much assumption in communication. It's like that idea of, hey, let's have a great day. You want to have a great day?
Totally.
And now we are in trouble, because your idea of a great day and my idea of a great day, but yet we agreed on a great day. Right. I know that's simplistic, but there isn't enough questioning. There's not enough, hey, help me understand what a great day looks like for you. Here's what a great day looks like for me. Can we find some common ground? And I see relationships fall apart because there isn't the transparency, not because people are hiding. Well, sometimes they are. Let's be honest. Sometimes they're not wanting to. But the most of the time that there's not transparency is because there's an assumption that people understand, hey, this is, I told you what I thought. I told you how I felt. It's like, no.
We were going to have a great day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think assumption, and then as well, expectation.
Yes.
Right? So both of those things start playing and kind of batting against each other. And then there is a total lack and misunderstanding of communication.
Yes, 100%. 100%. I know that Tori is referring to a statement that is used down here on our Turning Leaf page. A statement that's used in one of the seminars is talking about the pain of the fall is never as deep as the pain of never jumping, quote. And that, Tori, what that is referring to is instead of taking the risk, when we talk about healthy risk, instead of taking those healthy risks and really putting yourself out there, even though it may be uncomfortable, it's far more uncomfortable to look back over your shoulder and wish you had done something about it, is what that refers to, Tori.
Absolutely.
So just to button that up.
Well, and just one way that it actually really applies quite well to our topic.
It totally does, yes.
Is, I don't know about you guys, but I've had friends, loved ones, family members, and people that come to sit in my coaching office that are like, okay, I need to have this conversation with so-and-so. And these are all the different ways that I've figured out that it could possibly go, right? And we put off some of these conversations that we feel are painful or that are going to be hard or scary or really uncomfortable. So we put them off and we create these giant monsters in our head, right? And then when we actually, so for me, Tori, that would be the pain of never jumping, right? Like not actually going in and say, okay, hey, look, this isn't working for me, or can we talk about this? Or, hey, this is the way that I kind of interpreted this statement that you said, and it's been causing me this kind of an emotional reaction. Can we have a conversation about it? Instead, we just stay up in our head with it. And oh my gosh, is that painful?
Yeah.
Right? That is painful.
And instead of having the conversation,
right, instead of just jumping
and dealing with those things, you have to deal with the breakup of a relationship or a relationship ending due to conflict or confusion,
yes,
or lack of clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have a lot of people that will come in, couples that will come in, and they'll accuse each other of being dishonest with each other, and then they both sitting back scratching their head going, I've never been dishonest.
Yeah.
And it's because it's a perceptual issue, because there isn't clarity. There's not the communication, the questioning is that is done. And that's the thing that I do want to clarify on here too, is that there's different types of questioning. There's leading questions, so I can lead you into what I want you to think or say. Mm-hmm. There's entrapment questioning, where I'm trying to catch you in a lie or catch you in not being honest.
Parents are really good at those with teens.
Yeah,
they're really good at those entrapment questionings. So what were you doing last night?
So where were you? Who was that on the phone?
Right.
And then there's the passive aggressive questioning that we can get into, where we really know the answer, but we're going to ask the question to let you know that you're out of line, or you're wrong or bad, etc. Instead of really getting to the questioning. And real sincere questioning comes from the understanding that I am setting all of my assumptions aside, and I'm going to stand in the position where, okay, I really truly need to know. I really don't know the answer to this. And asking the question with sincerity, even if in my mind I think I know the answer, we have to abandon that and act as though this is the first time we've asked.
Right, absolutely. Especially when we're talking about matters of perspective, right? Because I love that image of like the 9 or the 6 drawn on the floor, and you have two people standing on opposite sides of it, right? And one's like, no, it's a 9. And the other person's like, are you kidding me? It's clearly a 6, right?
Yeah.
And so to be able to, like you were talking about, Dean, put away all assumption, all expectation, all those things aside, and be like, okay, this is my understanding, right? Like, what's your perspective? Let's come to some common ground on this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's so good. Tori, I hope that maybe she said something, I don't know.
Oh, there's a few more.
Oh, there is. Okay. So hopefully we kind of answered and looped that into communication. Yes. What do you know?
Yes. So going back to what you had brought up at the beginning before we lose time.
Okay.
And again, you can always go to our podcasts on Spreaker. And find it in the links on all of our modalities here. I don't even know what to call them. Platforms, venues.
Also, podcast coming to your favorite platform very soon.
Very soon. It's on Spotify and Google and whatnot.
Yeah.
But looping it back to being impeccable with your word, and that's what I love about Miguel Ruiz's book, The 4 Agreements. We talk a lot about his book, The Mastery of Love, because to me that is an amazing book. But in the 4 Agreements, he does go through, not to take things personal, be impeccable with your word, etc. And the impeccable with your words, mean what you say what you mean, as you put it so well, is really we have to take a step back and look at ourselves and ask ourselves, and that's what I'm hoping you as viewers will do today, is really step back and ask yourself, what keeps me from really communicating the way I truly want to be? Is it because I don't know how and I need to learn skills? Is it because I'm afraid of vulnerability or afraid that people will think I'm being too assertive?
Right.
What is it that is keeping you from being impeccable with your word?
Yeah, I love that. And to be honest, guys, that's where the work comes in, right? Is to be able to look at yourself honestly, without judgment, without trying to shame yourself and say, okay, I suck at this, clearly.
Yes.
So I'm the worst loser in the world. Why do I suck at this, right?
Yeah.
That's not what we're saying.
Nope.
Please always know that is never what we're saying. Hold yourself with grace and compassion and be like, okay, this is something I would really like to get better with, because it's going to improve my relationships with others. It's going to improve my relationship with myself, to be able to learn and grow and have more coping skills, right? So, love that question. What is it? What question, Jamie?
I'm not sure, but we love the question too.
Right. And so being able to really take a good look at you and your behaviors and how you show up and how you choose to communicate and seeing where you can improve and grow. High five, Dean. That's where the magic is.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can actually high five you.
Yeah, I know.
This venue.
I'm like, what?
High five! Exclamation mark.
Talking about poor communication. I'm like, waiting, what? Well, thank you all for tuning in. Please, again, always take these topics to your dinner table. Take these topics around the water cooler, as we put it, and make sure that you're talking. Talk. Communicate with those around you. Express, and share. You know, in the future, hopefully we'll get to talk about different personality types and why we communicate the way we do. We'll look at that maybe as another opportunity.
I don't know why you threw the maybe in there.
Okay.
That's a
done deal. Maybe next week we'll talk about that one. But it is important to communicate. So please communicate. The other thing, please like and share our videos. Make sure that we're getting them out. You can share them right to your page and make a comment to help others find information that is supporting movement and growth in the world, especially today where people are struggling and feeling isolated. Do what you can to spread the word. And
we love you guys.
And we'll see you next week on
Monday Night Live.
All right, I'll go up.
Okay. Love you, Court. She shouted out.